at chapter 9. The subject, the most confidential knowledge. Lord Krishna is the supreme Godhead and the supreme object of worship. The soul is internally related to him through transcendental devotee service, bhakti. Bhakti by reviving one's pure devotion on one returns of Krishna consciousness, Krishna in the spiritual realm. Sri Bhagavan Vacha idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshayamyana shuyave jnanam vijnanam shahitam yajjatva mokshaye sesrubhata. As a devotee hears more and more about the Supreme Lord, he becomes enlightened. This hearing process is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are full of potencies, and these potencies can be realized if topic regarding the Supreme Godhead are discussed among devotees. They cannot be achieved by association of mental speculators and academic scholars, for it is realized knowledge. The devotee are constantly engaged in the Supreme Lord service. The Lord understands the mentality and sincerity of a particular living entity who is engaged in Krishna consciousness, and gives him the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna in the association of devotee. Discussion of Krishna is very potent, and if a fortunate person has such association and tires to assimilate the knowledge, then he will surely make advancement toward spiritual realization. Lord Krishna is ordered to encourage Arjuna to higher elevation in his potent service described in this 9th chapter, matter more confidential than any he has already disclosed. The very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter, is more less in introduction to the rest of the book, and the second and third chapter, the spiritual knowledge described, is called confidential topic. Discussion in the 7th and 8th chapter are especially related to devotional service, and because they bring enlightenment in Krishna consciousness, they are called more confidential. They are called more confidential, but the matters of which are described in the ninth chapter deal with unalloyed pure devotion. Pure devotion, therefore, this is called the most confidential. One who is situated in the most confidential knowledge of Krishna is naturally transcendental. He is therefore he no material pains, although he is in the material world, in the bhakti Sindhu. Bhakti Rashmarta Sindhu is the said that all through one who has sincere desire to render loving service to the Supreme Lord is situated in the conditioned state of material existence. He is to be considered liberated. Similarly, we shall find in this Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, that anyone who is engaged in that way is liberated person. Now, this first verse has a specific significance. The word Adam Jnanam, this knowledge, refer to pure devotional service, which consists of 9 different activities: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping, praying, obeying, maintaining friendship, and surrendering everything. By the practice of these 9 elements of devotional service, one is elevated to spiritual consciousness, Krishna contemplation. One can understand this science of Krishna simply to understand that a living entity is not materials is not sufficient. That may be beginning of spiritual realization, but one should recognize the difference between activities of the body and the spiritual activities of one who understands that he is not the body. In the 7th chapter, we have already discussed the opulent potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his different energetic, the inferior and superior natures, and all this material manifestation. Now in the chapter 9, in the glories of the Lord will be delineated. The Sanskrit word anshu yava in this verse also very significant. Generally, the commentators, even if they are highly scholar, are all events of Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, even the most erudite scholars write on Bhagavad Gita very incurrently, because they are envious of Krishna. Their commentaries are useless. The commentaries given by devotee of the Lord are bona fide. No one can explain Bhagavad Gita or give perfect knowledge of Krishna if he is envious. One who criticized the character of Krishna without knowing him is a fool. So such commentary should be very carefully avoided for one who understands that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the pure and transcendental personality. This chapter will be very beneficial. According to Bhagavad Gita, Raj Vidya Raj Guhyang Pavitramida Muttamam Pratyakshavahagamanam Dharmyam Sukhu Susukhang Kartamya Vyayayam means this chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called the king of education because it is the sense of all distraints, doctrine and philosopher explain before. Among the principal of philosopher in India are Gautama, Kanada, Kapila, Yajna Vaslya, Shandilya and Vishwasnara, and finally there is Vishwadeva and other the Vedanta Sutra. So there is no dearth of knowledge in the field of philosophy or transcendental knowledge. Now the Lord says that this 9th chapter in the king of all such knowledge, the essence of all knowledge that can be diverted from the study of the Vedas and different kinds of philosophy. It is the most confidential because confidential or transcendental knowledge involves understanding the differences between the soul and the body, and the king of all unconditional knowledge, on confidential knowledge, culminate in devotional service. Generally, people are not educated in this confidential knowledge. They are educated in external knowledge. As far as ordinary education is concerned, people are involved with so many departments: politics, sociologist, physics, chemistry, psychologist, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, etc. There are so many departments of knowledge of all over in the world, and many huge universities, but there is unfortunately no university of educational institution where the science of the spirit soul is instructed. Yet the soul is the most important part of the body. Without the presence of the soul, the body has no value. Still, people are placing great stress on the bodily necessities of life. No caring for the vital soul. The Bhagavad Gita, especially from the second chapter on stress, the importance of the soul. In the very beginning, the Lord says that this body is perishable and that the soul is not perishable. Atma ima deha nityang shoktaha sarirang sariri naha. That is a confidential part of knowledge. Simply knowing that the spirit soul is different from this body and that its nature is immutable, indestructible and internal, but the gives no positive information about the soul. Sometimes people are under the impression that the soul is different from the body and that when the body is finished, one is liberated from the body, the soul remains in void and become impersonal, but actually that it is not the fact. How can this soul, which is so active within this body, be inactive after being liberated from the body? It is always active. It is internal. Then it is internally active. And its activities in the spiritual kingdom are the most confidential part of spiritual knowledge. These activities of the spirit soul are therefore indicated here is constituting the king of all knowledge, the most confidential part of all knowledge. This knowledge is the purest from all of activities, as explained in the Vedic literature. In the Padma Purana, men's sinful activities have been analyzed and are shown to be the result of sin after sin. Those who are engaged in fruitive activities are entangled in different stages and forms of sinful reactions. For instance, when the seed of a particular tree is sown, the tree does not appear immediately to grow. It takes some time. It is first a small sprouting plants that then it assumes the form of a tree. Then it flowers and bears fruit, and when it is complete, the flowers and fruits are enjoyed by person who have sown the seed of the tree. Similarly, a man perform a sinful act, and like a seed, it takes time to fructify. There are different stages. The sinful action may have already stopped within the individual, but the result or the fruit of that sinful action are still to be enjoyed. There are sins which are still in the form of a seed, and there are others which are already fructified and are giving us fruit, which we are enjoying and distress and plant. As explained in the 28th verse of the 7th chapter, a person who has completely ended the reactions of all sinful activities and who is fully engaged in pious activities, being freed from the duality of the material world, becomes engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In other words, those are who are actually engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord are already freed from all reaction. This statement is confirmed in the Padma Purana. For those who are engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all sinful reaction, whether rectified in the stalk or in the form of seed, gradually vanish. Therefore, the purifying potency of devotional service is very strong, and it is called Pavitram